Chiefs win the Super Bowl.
Chiefs win. Cry, Eagles, cry.
Great, excited to be back in the league.
You know, every day I got the Three Stooges in the studio with me is a good fucking day.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
So let's make sure he gets that bag.
Frauds, frauds! Woo!
Justin's way ahead in picks. That's all that you need to fucking know.
Show's over.
Show's over. We're going home. I would like to welcome you back to another page of the Playbook Sports Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? This is Nate from the Playbook Sports Podcast, and I'd like to welcome you to day one of off-season grades for all 32 NFL teams. We're going to start today out with Arizona. I'm just going to go in alphabetical order based on their location, which means we start with the Arizona Cardinals. For this, since this is episode 1 of this, I'm going to do every single day for the next 32 days, I'm going to do a different franchise. I'm going to grade their draft, and I'm going to go ahead and look at what they've done this entire offseason and where they stand heading into this summer. Most of the marquee free agents are off the board. It's just going to be some vets here and there, not a ton of needle movers. Obviously, everything can change with a huge trade, especially when you look at this team, Arizona, and what they may or may not do with DeAndre Hopkins and Budda Baker. And then once I've given you my grades on their draft and their offseason in total, I'm going to tell you about the 3 types of teams in the NFL, and I'll get to that when I get to that. So let's just go ahead and dive right into Arizona's offseason. You look at big changes. Big changes for this organization. First and foremost, Cliff Kingsbury is out as the head coach. They brought in Jonathan Gannon, former defensive coordinator out in Philadelphia. I personally do not like this hire. I just don't like it, man. He just strikes me as a coach that's going to struggle. I don't know what it is. Honestly, I don't have anything to back that up other than feelings. I hate watching the interaction between him and Budda Baker when he first showed up to their facility. Makes me hurt internally. It causes me actual physical pain to watch that interaction and to see him make noises and shoot his hands around and call him explosive. It's just weird, man. But they really cleaned house. They got rid of Kingsbury and brought in Gannon. Got rid of GM Steve Keim, who quote-unquote left. He was fired, but they just did it politely. And then they went ahead and brought in Monty Ossenfort to be the new GM. Some of their additions this offseason, not a lot. They didn't bring in a ton of marquee players or anything through free agency. They did bring in Kaiser White to help shore up their linebacker core. Brought in Kelvin Beachum and then Matt Prater, a kicker. So when I'm talking about a kicker as like a big addition, you know that they didn't do a whole lot. Key loss, really, and I say loss because really the only player that was a needle mover for them or really a starting guy, a name guy, J.J. Watt retired. So they have to replace him or had to replace him. They didn't do it in a way I thought that they might, but we'll get into that. And we're going to get into that right now, actually, because they may have replaced him now that I look at this. First round, Arizona, very, very active in the first round, trading down from 3 to 12 initially with Houston. I love this trade for them. Picking up Houston's first rounder next year. Looking at Houston and their roster, yeah, they did well this draft. I love C.J. Stroud. I love Will Anderson. That does not mean that they're going to compete this upcoming season. Houston has been bad for a while. C.J. Stroud is throwing the ball to Robert Woods. And that's it. And he's old and beat up. No offense, Robert. I know you're a big listener. They just don't have the weapons, man. Dameon Pierce is solid, but they do not have the weapons to succeed offensively. And it's going to take some time for D'Amico Ryan to get his defensive system put in. And yes, Will Anderson's an absolute menace off the edge, but he's one guy. He can't do the job himself. And they really messed up by taking Derek Stingley last year instead of Sauce Gardner. I love the trade, and then I like the trade back up to come up and get their guy. They had Paris Johnson Jr. as their top offensive lineman, and I'm sure if they couldn't find the right dance partner to trade back with, he was going to be the pick at 3. Love getting him at 6. I really do think he's going to be a very good offensive lineman in this league for a while, and he's just going to be a slot plug and play. You're going to hear that term used often. Plug and play offensive tackle for them. Very good. And I also like B.J. Ojulari in the second round. Is he a step-for-step replacement of J.J. Watt? No, he's not. But he is a very solid edge, and he could do well with in the right system. Sorry, I had a momentary lapse there. My favorite pick of their draft, not my favorite pick, because I really do like the Paris Johnson pick, but I think a sneaky good pick for them is Clayton Tune at pick 139. I really liked a lot of his tape at Houston. He's a gamer, man. And with Kyler Murray out, Kyler's going to miss probably the first half of the season. There's almost no world where Kyler Murray's ready week 1. I could see Clayton Tune having to step up and play, if Colt McCoy's not getting it done. And he steps in, and I think he could actually perform pretty well. He does seem to be kind of safe with the ball, which is not always a bad thing. I wouldn't mind seeing him just grip it and rip it every now and then, though. But just watching some of his film from their games this season, he could be solid and a good backup, and who knows what he could blossom into with the right development. With the value of the trade, this is where I get into their draft grade here. With the value of the trade down, I give their draft an A-. That Texans pick, you guys, that could be a top 3 pick next year, and Arizona's going to struggle this year. It's going to be interesting to see how they play this year underneath Jonathan Gannon, who has been caught lying about what media did to him in Philadelphia already. He's just weird, man. I just don't like the vibes I get from him. But I do like the draft. I do like what their GM is trying to build, and I like the draft. A- on the draft for them. They're just in such a weird spot because they do have a lot of holes on their roster, but they do have Kyler Murray, who was a first overall pick not too long ago and can be a dynamic playmaker. The issue is that he is now out, and I will say this, they were 4-9 with Kyler last year, which means they weren't really competing for a whole lot at that point in time. But as far as just this offseason goes, I do think they've set themselves up well for the future, and while this year might be a struggle, it might be okay, because if they get a top pick next year, sorry, DeAndre Hopkins, you got to go because Marvin Harrison Jr. is sitting right here, and we have picks 2 and 3, and you can just take whatever you want. I really liked that trade back. That was an absolute stroke of genius from their new GM to maybe set himself up to end up with 2 top 5 picks. 2023 is going to be rough for them, but I do think they did a nice job. Overall, offseason, I'm giving them a B+. Now, the new part of all of this that I haven't mentioned yet is I think that there are 3 kinds of teams in the NFL. This is just a generalization. I think that there are teams that are trying to win and compete right now. I think that there are teams that want you to think they are trying to win and compete right now, but really it's like, are you though? And then I think there are teams that are just like, yeah, we're going to suck this year and it is what it is. I think that, especially when it comes to this season, I think Arizona is a team that wants you to think that they're trying to win. I think that the window of Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins taking them to the promised land has been slammed shut, especially with this Murray injury, especially losing out with Kingsbury leaving and bringing in a more defensive-minded guy. I think that window is closed, but they're still hanging on to some of their older talent to just kind of, I feel like they're trying to give off the facade of competition. They're not going to do well in a weak NFC West. I will say I think Seattle and San Francisco both finish well above them this upcoming season. I think they're positioning themselves for a solid future, but I believe that they would go down in the category as a team that just wants you to think that they're trying to win. They're not being obvious about blowing things up. They're not trading Murray. They're not trading Hopkins. They haven't traded Budda Baker yet. But so, like, yeah, we're still trying here. But with Colt McCoy or even Clayton Tune, who I really do like as a prospect, I just don't see any way that they do much this season. I could be wrong. This could look really bad in 6 months. Who knows? But yeah, I think that since they're holding on to these players and they're not trading away from their talent pool, I say that they are a team that wants you to think they're trying to win. That's all I've got on Arizona Cardinals offseason currently. I will see you guys tomorrow for day number 2 of 32 teams in 32 days. Thanks.